Can we talk for a minute about Peter Boghossian? I had him on the show yesterday. He resigned from Portland State, not far from where Evergreen is, really. And it's just such a shame. I wonder, it must have brought something up in you guys, because you too were forced out. You were, liberal professors at a liberal university, effectively forced out for not being woke enough. Let me start with you, Heather, since you and I have yet to speak together.
Yeah. Well, again, it's such a pleasure to talk with you, Megyn. And Pete is a friend, and we didn't actually know that this was in the offing exactly, but he has been struggling with the PSU administration and the ideology there for years, as you are well aware. So, the letter that he posted on Barry Weiss's Substack was telling. That's, the letter that he wrote to the administration, detailing a little bit, hardly all, of what he endured, not just the kinds of the ramifications of the ideology itself, but the methods that people will stoop to, the lies and slander that are really despicable, that people seem willing to stoop to because they think they're in the right, is, really telling of our times. And it also reveals how badly we need a functional higher ed system and how much we don't have one at the moment.
I was thinking about it as Larry Elder was complaining, today's the recall election in California. And he was like, okay, so a member of my team got assaulted. A member of my team got shot with a BB gun. A woman wearing a gorilla mask attacked Larry and threw an egg at him. And he said, so much for the intolerant left. And that's what I was thinking when I listened to Pete yesterday talking about a bag of feces being put outside of his office door. He too was spat upon. Professors' colleagues pulling out the microphone wires when he had people on campus, including you two, right? Wait, now that I'm looking at you, it was you two and Christina Hoff Sommers, right?
With the moment when the AV was pulled was actually me and Helen Pluckrose, who, along with James Lindsay, the three of them were the grievance studies affair, and James Damore. So it was the four of us on stage, and Bret introduced us. And I was actually making the outrageous claim at the moment that the sound was pulled, that men are taller than women. And that was, and this is,
you pig.
Exactly. Now that is both true and actually not the full story. It's actually worse than that. Apparently that whole thing was timed. It was staged. It was yet more cosplaying, and that suggests that that many of these people are engaged in what I have called a kind of read-only activism. That nothing that you can say to some of them can actually even enter into their framework. They already know what they know, and they're already going to do what they do.
All right, I've got to ask my dumb question. What is cosplaying? I see that word all the time. I don't totally understand it.
Yeah, I mean, I use it along with LARPing, right? costume playing, long action role playing, the idea that we are, in fact, on a stage. It's at some level, it harkens back to, to Shakespeare, perhaps. All the world's a stage. We are all in a performance, and it suggests that you can therefore step outside of the performance that you're engaging in. Like, this is not your real life. And we're seeing a lot of that, of course.
Well, there is, of course, an honorable version of cosplay where people actually create quite elaborate costumes and, regenerate characters from their favorite superhero narratives or whatever it might be, Star Trek. And of course, there's a long history of people reenacting Civil War battles and things like this.
And Ren Fair, right? Renaissance fairs.
Right. So it's not that it is inherently a bad phenomenon. Right, we're showing our age.
There's a secret there, Heather. I want to know more about you. Keep going, Bret.
So I did want to say a couple things about Peter that I know are going to get lost in his story. That we have actually had the privilege of not only participating in events that he hosted at his college, but also of lecturing in his classroom. And so we've seen his relationship with his students, and he is exactly the kind of professor that you want. He cares at an extraordinary level. He invests everything in teaching students how to think and not what to think. And the idea that everything from a bag of feces to trumped up charges that resulted in investigations, the use of every possible weapon to silence somebody who's saying something that is obviously true is a mechanism for generating a false appearance of consensus, which then persuades people that something that isn't true is. And that's what the attempt is here. And having forced him out, they have succeeded in something which will harm us all.
Yeah. As it turns out, Peter is a wonderful human being, as well as being an excellent thinker and professor, but he shouldn't need to be, right? Just like a rape victim shouldn't need to have led a perfect and honorable life in advance of a horrible attack, and that attack being actually, having the attack be revealed as what it is, so too should those of us who are seeing what is true in higher ed not need to have been paragons of perfection in order to have our stories heard. In fact, we know of some of these stories where people, maybe weren't terrific professors. Maybe their scholarship wasn't as good as it might be, and it's harder to get those stories heard. And that is conflating two things, right? That you can be a canary in this particular coal mine, and we need more of them. And we should not force the standards to be that those people also have to be excellent in every areas of their lives. As it turns out, Peter is.
It reminds me, my dad was a college professor. He died when I was only 15 of a sudden heart attack at age 45. But he was a college professor, first at Syracuse University and then at the State University of New York at Albany. And he used to go into my public schools when I was enrolled year after year, and he would say to the teachers the same thing. And it was his own philosophy too, which was, I don't really care exactly what you teach my child, just don't destroy her love of learning. And it just seems like we've totally abandoned that, right? That no one cares about the love of learning of these students on college campuses or K through 12. It's all about indoctrination.
Yeah, it's actually cryptically an attempt to destroy the capacity to learn. And I think one of the things that we saw when Evergreen melted down was that our colleagues became incapable of learning. They could not see the lesson in front of them. They could not understand that they were on the wrong track. And so they kept doubling down on the same incorrect ideas, and it resulted in the collapse of the college. So this is it's a cautionary tale, and Peter's situation is the next chapter.